This video is for 4th grade, and I'm doing it from home tonight. I'm homesick, well, home with my son who is sick, so I hope that you guys can find some value in these videos. Hope to be back with your kids soon. The first one, which this test will be for Thursday, February 28th. This first one, they'll be taking some values and then deciding if it's greater than or less than a certain amount. The next one, just practicing our division. Sometimes it has a remainder, other times it does not. On this question that we have here, we're practicing taking what we call expanded form and then putting it into a base 10 or standard form. I had them put on their paper to notice that there were no hundreds there was not a hundreds place value. A lot of them will like to take the 3, 6, 8, 5, 2 and then leave out a 0 here or wherever the 0 no value is, and then they'll end up missing it because they won't have the correct standard form. So you can practice that by just changing the numbers, leaving out a place value wherever you choose to, just to give them a different practice for that. Believe it or not, we still struggle with rounding, so practicing rounding would be great, and we do it lots of times throughout the week. This question here is one, and I'm going to try to zoom it in for you. On their study guide, they should have a couple different steps that I've asked them to practice whenever they're looking at this. So their first step would say, pick a number line inside or out. And what that means is the 0, whether the 0 is on the inside or the outside. So I said that I would have chosen the 0 on the inside just because the angle was pointing, started over here on this right side. The number line on the outside would have meant that they picked the 0 over here. The next step would be that they follow the number line and write the measurements, as you see here where I've done that 5 and 80, where the rays cross that number line on the protractor. Then they would take those measurements and subtract them. A lot of them try to add it, but make sure that they are subtracting those measurements. If you were to have chosen the number line starting on the outside, you would have started on this 0 over here, followed it around. Those measurements would have been 110 and then ended up on 175 because you would have stayed on the outside number line. Once again, when you subtracted those, you would have still gotten 75. If you want to practice by drawing another angle and having your child do that, then that would help them with that practice. This next question is just an addition problem. On this question, it is a number, whether it's prime or composite. I like to tell them that to remember that you can think of Amazon Prime. Prime ships in 2 days sometimes, but if a number is prime, then it would only have 2 factors. If a number is composite, it has more than 2 factors. We also have rules of divisibility to decide if a number can be divided. And the rule that we have here with this number was that since this number ended in 5, they should have known that any number ending in 5 will have 5 as a factor. And there's other rules. They should have those rules, or even ask them if they can tell you those. On this one here, you can see that one of our tricks in comparing fractions is that they can multiply up across, like a cross multiply. So 10 times 7 is 70. 10 times 8 is 80, and then they compare 80 and 70. But I also told them that even if the denominators are the same, all they have to do is compare the numerators. So in this case, all they had to do was compare the 8 and the 7. So that trick works if the denominators are not the same. On number 11 here, this was a question where it asked them to write a sentence with a sum of unit fractions, and they should have written the definition of a unit fraction is a fraction with the numerator of 1, and this was a fraction 7/10. So if you want to practice with a different fraction, asking them to write that, then that would be great. I had them write the definition of parallel lines and then perpendicular lines just to practice the difference. This one here, we talked about 4 times 1/3 with 4 over 1, meaning, or 4/3, we'd take 4 divided by 3, and then that would be one whole number, and then 1 left over becomes our numerator, and the 3 becomes our denominator. And then how that would also look as an addition problem. This is the matrix problem that we've been working on for a while. The 80 comes down, the 90 goes across to multiply. 6 times 90 in this box, 6 times 2 in this box, 80 times 2 here, and then of course you would add those values across and then down as well. They should both equal the same. And then on the last page, 1 minute equaling 60 seconds. You can practice with different minutes equaling a different value of seconds. How many minutes equals 60 or how many minutes equal 120 seconds, or even 2 or 3 minutes equals how many seconds. And then the last one, describing a pattern. I always ask them to give me 2 different describing factors. For example, what does the pattern start with, and then what would be the rule? I hope this helps. Hope to see you guys soon.